Hi everybody, welcome back to NoPro Worship. My name is David Wesley. This week we're continuing our mini-series on hymn adaptation, breathing new life into old songs. If you're wondering why we should bother doing this, why mess with a good thing, you should go back 3 videos to a video called Hymn Adaptation, Why Bother? The last couple of weeks we looked at the chord structure of hymns, and first we looked at oversimplifying a complex hymn using a technique called hover chording. And then we looked at adding some extra complexity into a hymn that might have had a chord structure that was a little bit simple. The best part about either of these techniques is that it doesn't change anything about the melody, about what the congregation has to do to participate. This week will be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about taking hymns that were written in a 3/4 time signature and moving them into a 4/4 time signature. I'll talk about the reasons why and a couple ways that you can do it. I would say that the majority of music written in a Western tradition, all the way from Baroque and classical music to rock music and rap music today, is written in 4/4 time. That means that there's 4 beats to a bar and that 1 beat is a quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the underlying structure that will be the majority of the hymns in a hymn book as well. Coming in at a distant second would be 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's a great many hymns, famous and forgotten, that were written in 3/4 time, but it's much less common in contemporary worship music. It's the time signature of the waltz. It can have a bit of an old-timey feeling unless there's a real concerted effort by the musicians to find some kind of syncopation or a groove that doesn't kind of fall back into a traditional swing. Probably the most famous example of taking a hymn out of 3/4 time and putting it into 4/4 time is Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone, sung by Chris Tomlin. This adaptation with its new chorus has been so successful that I think many Christians today would have difficulty reproducing the original 3/4 melody of Amazing Grace from memory. In their minds, they'll conflate it with the Chris Tomlin version. In fact, I challenge you to pause this video and try to sing Amazing Grace and leave a note in the comments of what version came out of your mouth. So, which version came out of your mouth? Or could you really tell the difference? Just for reference sake, this is the original 3/4 melody of Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. And the 4/4 version by Chris Tomlin. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I have to admit that it took all of my concentration, including snapping my fingers, to give myself the time signature to really keep these two melodies apart. They're quite similar, and the Chris Tomlin version has just been so prevalent on the radio and in church that it really is hard to forget. Now, the way that this 4/4 melody was constructed was by lengthening some notes, shortening some other ones, adding some syncopation so that some of the phrases hang over the end of the bar, whereas the 3/4 version is actually quite metric. Now, why Chris Tomlin put it into 4/4 time, I don't know. It does give it a more modern feel. Perhaps the My Chains Are Gone chorus that was added to it didn't fit well in a 3/4 time signature, so the original hymn was adapted to fit better with that. Overall, I think it's a great adaptation, and unlike some other ones, it doesn't add a whole lot to the vocal range of the song. So what I want to do now is to take this technique of lengthening some notes, shortening others, adding some syncopation, some offbeat rhythms, to adapt a few more 3/4 hymns into 4/4 time. Now, my purpose for doing this is to introduce a little bit extra energy, so you can take a more sedate but well-known and beloved hymn and turn it into something more energetic. And perhaps, depending on your convictions and your personality, there might actually be some hand clapping involved. So first, the original in 3/4. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. And then the 4/4 adaptation. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There Again, the 3/4 original.
Heart of my own heart, whatever before, still be my vision, O ruler of all.
And then the 4/4 adaptation.
Heart of my own heart, whatever before, still be my vision, O ruler of all.
So the original 3/4 version with some hover chording.
The love of God is greater far than tongue or pen could ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star and reaches to the lowest hell.
And the 4/4 version.
The love of God is greater far than tongue or pen could ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star and reaches to the lowest hell.
And of course, we can't break our streak of using the solid rock as an example. The original 3/4.
On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand.
And the 4/4 version.
On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand.
So there are some advantages to using this technique to shift from 3/4 to 4/4 time. The first one, actually, with the example of the love of God, it actually creates some pauses for people to breathe in what otherwise are some awkward phrases to sing. That's pretty helpful. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is one way that you can add extra energy to the song, and it is easier for drummers and guitar players to find either strumming patterns or drumming grooves to play in a 4/4 time. One of the downsides is that we are changing the melody of the song a little bit. The pitches are the same, but some of the notes are lengthened and some are shortened. So for a congregation that is really, really familiar with the hymn, they might have some difficulty moving forward. But my experience with using some of these arrangements is that people pick up very, very quickly, especially if it's led with confidence from the singers and a strong beat from the band. So thanks so much for joining me this week on NoPro Worship as we looked at injecting new life into old hymns by shifting them out of 3/4 time and into 4/4 time. I make these videos because I believe God's people deserve leaders that grow, and that includes worship leaders, singers, and musicians that lead our congregations in worship before God every week. These videos are made possible by my patrons on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting their creation, you can head to patreon.com/DavidWesley. And I hope to return next week with the focus on, again, changing time signatures, this time from going from 4/4 time into 3/4 time and even 6/8 time.